Welcome back to the Energy Fix. Thank you so much for being here with us again today. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I think isn't discussed nearly enough. We're going to be talking about perinatal mental health and how pregnancy and birth can be profound rites of passage, not just for the birther herself or oneself, but also for those that are involved. It's not just a medical event. It's not something just to get through. It is something to experience, and it is something that is going to expand you as an individual. We're also going to be exploring something I personally love because it brings the body back into the conversation, and that is nature connection. We're going to be talking about it as a real pathway for the nervous system and how to regulate it and how to use it to help you heal, but especially during pregnancy and postpartum and grief and identity shifts, because this is going to play a huge factor in this whole conversation around perinatal mental health. My guest today is Alyssa Coleman. She is a full spectrum doula, wilderness guide, and adventure therapist in training, currently studying mental health counseling with a focus in adventure-based and experiential counseling. She's building bridges between perinatal care and the natural world in a way that really feels both tender and powerful. And she's also working on a nature immersion research project and retreat that we're going to get into a little bit later on, and you'll learn all about that. All right. We're going to get into this conversation. Welcome to the show, Alyssa. Let's dive in. How are you?
Oh, I am great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be a great conversation. Definitely something we haven't talked about on the show, but yet I think is so important because I think it just gets swept under the rug. People have been having children since the beginning of time.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just like this thought of, oh, well, this is just what happens. This is part of the human experience. But nobody talks about all of the things that could happen, that could shift the world for the people involved.
Yeah, yes. I personally am often confused about why more people aren't deeply obsessed as I am.
Yeah,
It's yeah,
it's a major life event.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Well, before we really dive into this, let's get to know you and where you're at in this season of your life. Let's talk about a word or a phrase that you're really embodying right now and that you're feeling is an important part of your season and where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. I love that. I think, a word that is coming to mind right now is mutuality. Feels like something I've been feeling pulled towards recently is just this awareness of reciprocity within everything, that nothing exists in this unilateral way, but really we're always kind of functioning within this responsive web of relational contact. That's something that's been feeling really present for me, both just personally and professionally. So yeah, something that maybe I'm working to embody, but definitely is present in my day-to-day on my mind for sure.
And how are you seeing it show up in your life? How are you seeing it show up in your life, and how are you also honoring it?
Yeah, in so many ways. It just feels like bringing that awareness into any interaction fleshes out the reality of it, as opposed to moments where we could maybe easily see another human as an object, or I feel a phrase that is in the ether is a non-player character. That's it hurts my soul to think of anyone as a non-player character. No, just recognizing that every interaction that we have is between two or more whole worlds of a human, and then also even just not humans are more than human kin, how there's mutuality in that, and that this web that we're all a part of ripples with the contact of all of any sort of intersection of interaction. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
honestly, I love that. I feel like we are moving towards these times of just really allowing ourselves to fully and completely not only connect with other humans, but also in a way that is loving and respectful and honoring of that soul. And that really feels like it's what you're talking about here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Alyssa, before we dive into this beautiful conversation, I want to pull back the curtain. I want to get to know you. I want to hear what you have to say about when you say perinatal mental health. What does that actually include, and what do you wish more people really understood about that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so perinatal mental health. The perinatal period is generally defined as like, of course, starting with pregnancy and then extending to the arbitrary cutoff is like 1 year postpartum. But I like to incorporate into this kind of working definition. Also, the trying to conceive journey feels really important from my perspective to like also allow space for in this. And then also just kind of, yeah, those more like extended aspects of postpartum that don't really just like suddenly stop after the 1 year mark. There's no like, it just feels like kind of silly to like, there's a buzzer that goes off and like, oh, okay, it's 1 year, time to get over it now. Like, it doesn't really work like that. So I think, yeah, the working definition should have space in it for like these extended aspects of postpartum, and then also the like any feelings of like incompletion that might arise from things like unresolved birth trauma, or like the disenfranchised grief of miscarriage, or like identity shifts. Those are things that very much continue to impact people past that 1 year mark. So I like to create more space in the definition of like, it's not just like pregnancy to 1 year. There's much more space for like idiosyncratic experience within it, because not everybody moves through this at the same rate. That's not like, yeah, it's not hard and fast like that. So yeah, I think something that, I guess that kind of speaks to something that I wish that more people sort of knew about it, is that it doesn't really like conform to this kind of like neat time-stamped version of events. And similarly, it doesn't like look the same for everyone. And I think sometimes the perinatal mental health landscape can be like kind of oversimplified or like stereotyped almost, in like, oh yeah, like you'll have these hormonal shifts, you'll have the baby blues, you'll be really tired, and then like you'll get over it and you'll be back to your old self, right? Like that, done and done. But I think something that feels really powerful to highlight as like maybe something that we could speak to more in this is that like that concept of returning to the old self is like a fallacy, because the old self isn't there anymore. The old self has absolutely evolved. And like in postpartum, it's absolutely evolved. And in pregnancy, it's in the process of evolving. So yeah, pregnancy, postpartum, entry into parenthood, it's all this like incredibly expansive, like stretching and growing in literally all ways and those are like the exact conditions that are required for profound transformation, right? And like in this phase, in this season of life, that transformation is literally supported and fueled by like all layers of your being, right down to like a cellular level. And that's incredible, of course, like so beautiful and profound. And it's also like can be really unsettling and like super intense. So yeah, those are like, yeah, aspects of the reality of it that I think could be really helpful to like hold more fully for perinatal folks.
Yeah, wow. And so you can tell the passion just exudes out of you when you talk about this. And you also mentioned earlier that you feel so passionate about this and want people to know more. And so I want to know your story. What got you here? What pulled you towards this birth work and being so passionate about this conversation, but also being pulled towards bringing nature and that connection and the woods into this whole conversation? Tell us your journey.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I love that. I love like I love the grouping of birth work and the woods together, and like the pull towards them together, because it truly is like actually the same motivation, even if it like didn't it like took me a moment to realize that the motivation is exactly the same. But yeah, so basically it kind of comes back to that. I feel like I've sort of always been on this quest, which I am very much not alone in. I think that yeah, pretty much we're all like on this quest in one way or another to kind of seek out, to find, to like lean into and celebrate and live in these things that feel like the most real and true to me, like the most genuine aspects of being a human, like those beautiful little microcosms or intersections that like somehow capture the essence of what actually really matters and allows that to be alive. And you know, these other sort of constructs that we have to live in sort of can fall away for a minute. I just feel like there's so many, we have to navigate a world that like backseats the soul so often, where like you go over there and we have these things to tend to. But I love the spaces where the soul gets to like come out and walk around, and we get to like live in this like simultaneous like the most basic both birth and nature feel like the most like basic fundamental things, but they're also the most like mystical incredible things, right? So yeah, so that's kind of my background is in therapeutic wilderness guiding, and I was led there because like nothing felt more real to me than meaningful and transformative encounter with nature and other people through that. So yeah, and I think honestly birth lives in that same intersection for me. So like I think of pregnancy and birth as their own, a wilderness of their own, because they truly are. And yeah, they're like, I love places that feel like the metaphorical and the literal are like walking hand in hand. Like there's so much incredible metaphorical richness in nature and in birth, but then there's also this like unparalleled actualness where it's like, yeah, birth is literally, like not exaggerating, the seed of all creation. Like it actually is that. And then of course there's like so many layers of metaphor in that. So yeah, it's like these places, just like wilderness and birth work, they are like flexion points where the sacred and the mundane come like really incredibly close together. And I just love thinking about how that's like not a new recognition. That's like something that we've always known kind of. And I think about like Artemis is the Greek goddess of wilderness, right? And she's also the Greek goddess of childbirth. Like this knowledge is like in our ether. Like it's, yeah, not a new thing, but it's maybe like has gotten a bit forgotten or piled on top of by, you know, so many of these societal realities that we have to navigate. So yeah, and so I don't know if that was like kind of a winding way to answer your question, but
Yeah,
you know, I was
no.
winding through the wilderness over here.
Yeah, no, and that's so, I didn't know that Artemis was the goddess of both of those, and I find that incredibly fascinating because, like you said, it's already in the ether. Like that is already being connected, and you're just bringing that to
Yeah.
awareness. Yeah, and you know, when you were talking, one of the things that I was sitting here thinking about was, now what I'm about to say, I don't mean to open any can of worms.
I'll open them. I'm here for it.
And this may be way too early for any of this kind of discussion, but I feel like it fits so beautifully. I was sitting here thinking about how so many birthers struggle when they go into the hospital setting and have their birth, and they're disconnected from nature and groundedness, and they're disconnected from all of those natural rhythms that can help them birth and feel connected and feel like they are in the process rather than just like being part, like rather than being like an outsider observer of the process, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and why so many may actually just really have a harder birth, perhaps because of so many of those disconnections. But again, like that's just me observing as you're talking and what I know about the energy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on, Tansy. That's real. And like you said, yeah, sometimes it might lead to a harder birth. And I would say like, I don't know if it's even a flip side, but maybe just like in addition to that is sometimes it can feel like it leads to an easier birth in a way that like is like easy in terms of, sorry, air quotes, easy, in terms of it takes something out of it. Sometimes it takes the birthing person out of it. They're like, okay, this is easy because I can just, and again, yeah, maybe this is a whole nother podcast episode, but like, I have nothing, I'm not like fully against epidurals or anything, but as an example, epidural, you're like, I could just get an epidural and then I don't even have to be here. I can like you're talking about not feeling the rhythms, like you can literally not feel what's happening. And sometimes that's what's needed sometimes. I fully can get behind that. And also there are ways in which something is potentially lost in that. And again, that's like, okay, that's totally fine sometimes. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying you can't do that. You can do whatever the heck you want in your birth. It's yours. And I love and support you through that. But yeah, so it's interesting to think about like, yeah, in some ways, sometimes an air quotes easier birth can also sort of have some flavor in it that's like, in wilderness guiding, sometimes we talk about like hard, easy, hard, where like sometimes in the moment you want to do the easy thing, like not get out that extra layer that you need because it's way down in your pack and you don't want to. But then later it's going to be harder to do the hard thing. So sometimes you have to do the hard thing so that it's easier later. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. Well, so when someone is struggling during pregnancy or postpartum, and we're talking, like, we're bringing it into the mental health side now, what are the signs that often get missed or minimized, especially the high functioning version of this suffering? Yeah. What do you see as people starting to feel like they're being disconnected and really struggling with that mental health aspect?
Yeah. I think something that I've seen a lot is like the struggle to actually communicate what is going on for you as a birthing and postpartum person. Because I think I'm thinking specifically about postpartum clients right now. This like energy of like they feel like they're trying to put in the effort to communicate their reality, but that genuine attempt at communication is like filtered through this, what I feel like is like the like air quotes like the should energy that like dominates the perinatal space often, of like, you know, I should be grateful, or I should feel fine by now, or I should know how to do this, or yeah, any number of shoulds that and that filtering process, it takes like that genuine like not okayness filtered through the should energy and all these like societal norms. And so what comes out is like something that can land as just kind of like a casual comment, kind of, you know, like someone trying to say like, this is really hard and I don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, too often I think that can be met with a sort of like brushing off energy where you're like, yeah, well, none of us know how to do it and we're all just figuring it out. Good luck. Bye. Yeah, which is, yeah, I get the effort of care behind that, of like, yeah, same, but you know, keep on keeping on. Right. And it's not to say that like every casual comment is an indication of a mental health struggle, but what I am hoping to communicate is that we need to societally create more space for perinatal folks to like have their voices be really heard, to like slow down around what's hurting for them and hold it, even if it is something that might feel like quote unquote just part of the gig. Like yeah, let's actually listen to that and sit down with that human being and help them hold their reality. And yeah, because yeah, even with, especially I think with that high functioning sort of suffering that you're mentioning, it's like it can look like people, yeah, this like a new parent or a pregnant person might be like going through the motions, doing the tasks that need to be done, and from the outside people might be like, oh great, yeah, she totally looks like she's got it, it's all good. But I think that I'm sure that you can attest to this, and I can attest to like it's sometimes quite possible to do all the tasks and like look like outwardly okay and inwardly be like freaking out, or whatever the words are that capture like the particular flavor of like mental distress that's going on for that person. So I think like it's not always that these little communications are necessarily indications of something like big and dire, but they are invitations to like actually listen to a human and like be there with them through their process. So I think that's something that can get missed in like the brushing off. We don't have to like make it a huge deal. Like it can still feel like have like a casual energy to it, but like a casual and like deeply caring energy is what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it kind of comes back to that whole emotional theme. Like, you know, what people are expressing no matter if they're high functioning or not. This is the same as burnout. No matter if they're high functioning or not, no matter if it looks like they have everything together and everything is fine, there's still these like emotional themes, or these things that actions, I should say, those actions that they may be expressing that are showing I'm actually not okay. I'm just really trying to mask it. So I'm curious if you find some really common emotional themes that tend to pop up around pregnancy, postpartum, you know, any of this time frame that really show that there might be some concern going on. And also then, how do you normalize it? How do you help that person move through it?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, let's see, I think some themes in terms of like maybe like unexpected feelings or emotions or experiences that can come up around, you know, in the perinatal continuum. I think a lot of the themes kind of come back to like feelings of guilt. So I think that that's like the secondary layer on top. So there's like any number of things, whether it's like overwhelm or like numbness or rage or low energy depressions, like all of those things, whatever the like foundational actual experiences, oftentimes gets layered with guilt and shame. And that's what really creates this like suffering mess is what it's feeling like in my like trying to describe it right now. So yeah, I think that what it takes is like creating the space and allowing the space for a whole range of emotions and like ambivalence and paradox to exist within this time frame, like, and maybe all time frames. Let me just sidebar that. But yeah, like you can feel unparalleled joy and also like deep confusion and overwhelm. Like those can exist moment to moment, and neither one needs to be true and the other one false. Like we need to be able to like hold ambivalence and dissonance in this time, and that can be really hard for a person to do by themselves, and then even more so if the people around them are like, oh, you need to, have this. Oh, here's a classic one. I've worked with so many folks who like didn't experience that like love bomb moment of like, this is the perfect, I'm like deeply in love with this little babe, like the second that I see their eye. And that can be so hard for them to feel like, oh, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Oh shit, I didn't like feel the thing that everybody said that I'm supposed to feel, right? And then they're like, well, this must be somehow like an unalterable declaration of my like inadequacy as a person or like as a parent. Like that didn't happen for me, so I must be a terrible person kind of feeling. That's
like like a what's wrong with me?
Yes. Yeah. Literally, okay, number one question that I get as a doula in any realm is this normal? That's the baseline question that everybody has. And I'm like, yes. Usually, yes. But yeah, so like letting an experience like that as an example be what it is, like, yeah, okay, maybe you didn't feel that love bomb moment, and that is absolutely okay and normal to feel like so overwhelmed that you feel like it's like maybe blocking you from that connection that you're hoping to feel, and letting that be okay without adding the layers of suffering that come from like guilt and making it mean something about you as a, your fundamental self. Like you're going to feel a whole range of things, and those things will ebb and flow and change just like everything always will as a fundamental rule of the universe, right? So
yeah,
I think that like the creating even just like a fractional little bit more of an invitation for like kind of like a curiosity and equanimity around like the mental health landscape and the emotional landscape of this time period is like, can we get curious about why we're feeling that way, and can we also recognize that we're not going to feel that way forever? That can feel really hard when you're like in something deeply, but yeah, finding little kind of, I'm thinking of like when the paint is chipping and you can like just tiny chip away at this like all these layers that are holding that as stuckness, and allow for a little bit more spaciousness through equanimity.
Yeah.
It's a practice.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, one of the things that just doesn't get really honored, really talked about or acknowledged is just the amount of fear and pressure and medical overwhelm that people can feel when they're in this process, whatever stage they're at, right? There's just so much that could be happening. And so, Alyssa, I'm curious, how can the birther really reclaim all of this as a rite of passage if they're trying to navigate through these emotions? Like, how, like, they're in the middle of all of this. They're feeling the fears. They're feeling the pressure. Maybe they're medically overwhelmed, depending on what's happening. And how can they still turn it around and say, this is a rite of passage and I honor that? Because I am sure that that's challenging.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. Oh, man. Yeah, and especially with what you named of the like medical overwhelm of it, like that, just the degree to which birth has become medicalized, like truly some people are existing in this space where they like like I'm thinking of a client that I have right now that she keeps saying to me like, oh, pregnancy is not easy, and it's always when I'm at an appointment with her, and what she means is like I'm always having to, she like kind of translated, like finished the thought for me when I asked further. She was like, I'm just always having to go to so many appointments. Pregnancy is not easy. I'm like, that's the part that's like getting, yeah. She's like, that's the hard part. It's got to come in all these ultrasounds. Oh my God, it's too much. Yeah. So like, yeah, the medical overwhelm part of it, even in like a healthy, uncomplicated pregnancy, can feel like a lot. So just wanting to name that, like, the medicalization of birth is really at a lot of the core of a lot of this sort of overwhelm and fear and pressure. And I want to talk about that a little bit more. And I also want to first like kind of start from the top with this idea that you mentioned of reclaiming childbirth as a rite of passage. And like, I think anytime that I go to talk about this, I feel inclined to like name that I love this idea. And I for sure did not come up with it. Like, it's not me. I don't want any listeners out there to be like, wow, Alyssa Coleman, she came up with childbirth. No, honey. I am but a disciple of this movement. So I think it's like, you know, our mutual friend, Bianca Sprague from Bebo Mia. Shout out, Bianca. You're incredible. She always says that citation is a feminist practice, and that you should always like cite your sources so that you can like name and uplift the people who have like are doing this work, and like we're all in it together. So I just want to shout out Rachel Reed, who I don't know if you're familiar, but she's a midwife and author of the incredible book Reclaiming Childbirth as a Rite of Passage. So like it's right there. It's all right there in the title. And then of course there's the wonderful Dr. Robbie Davis Floyd, who she's a reproductive anthropologist and researcher, and she's given so much to the birth world, including a super classic book, Birth as an American Rite of Passage. So just like for some context, like this conversation has been going on for, quite a while. Like Robbie wrote her book 2 years before I was even born. So like, I'm only just like entering in, offering whatever little bit that I can to this ongoing conversation. But yeah, so with that, I think that like so much of this fear and pressure and overwhelm that you're speaking to me, it kind of goes back to, especially if we're going to like talk about it in the context of a rite of passage, I think it can be like really powerful to provide like a little bit of framing around I think we all have like a general sense of what a rite of passage is, but there's one element in it that I'm like, let's like maybe highlight that so that people can be like, okay, this is a rite of passage that I'm about to do. That's scary. Like rites of passage, I think we understand them to be like a ritualized movement from one place to another, from like one role or status to another. And we know there's challenge in them. There's inherently like there's supposed to be challenge. And also, and I feel like this is the important part, that challenge is paired with a recognition of very probable success. So that's like actually part of the structure of it, right? So like rites of passage are generally not meant to be insurmountable. That kind of defeats part of the purpose, right? Like they're like the idea is this is something that is navigable given the correct container, and that container is a community of support, right? So I think that going into the rite of passage of childbirth with that understanding of a very probable success, like that is part of what you're doing here. And I think that can help with that sense of like fear and pressure and overwhelm, because I think a lot of that societally comes from feeling like we have to do it ourselves. And sure, like you're the only one that can like lift your foot up and step over the threshold, but on either side of the threshold are your people. So you're not meant to have to do it alone. And again, like, yeah, rites of passage happen within this web of support. So I think, yeah, I don't know if that directly speaks to your question, but and yeah, that's like sort of thinking about the like rite of passage part of it. But then if we're like going to bring in a little bit more of that, the like doing that in this modern medicalized world, that really brings me to Robbie Davis Floyd, because she kind of she talks about the three models or paradigms of birth, which are, these are like the like kind of settings that birth can happen in, or like the context, I guess. So she talks about the technocratic model, the humanistic model, and the holistic model of birth. And of course, although there's like always variance and people like trying to do things differently out there, which like shout out to you trying to do things differently out there, love you, respect you. Yeah, even given those variants, what we're working with here in the United States and really pretty much in like all industrialized countries is the technocratic model. So that means that birth is highly medicalized, doctor-led, and informed by this either like quite blatantly or more subconsciously informed by this view of like the birther as a machine and the baby as a product. Which is like, that's not it, right? Like something's missing there. And I think we all know that to be true. Like we know that that's not it. I think even people who are upholding that know that it's not it somewhere deep down. But yeah, so I think that reclaiming the rite of passage of childbirth within that particular societal context means like remembering and finding ways to really like access the reality of childbirth beyond the concept of being a dysfunctional machine, because one, you're not dysfunctional, and two, you're not a machine. And like, yeah, accessing entry points into like really feeling into that birth is not just a physical experience, and it certainly is not an experience that must be managed and controlled by a gatekeeping other. So it's bringing it back to centering the birthing human and allowing that human to like enter into all aspects of the journey while being held by that community of support, right? And I just also want to name that like I think sometimes maybe people can like hear these ideas and they're like, oh well, that must be like, you know, crunchy granola home birth, right? But it doesn't have to be that. This like I feel really passionate about that this like effort towards deepening into birth can and should happen, not to should anyone. I need to like erase that word from my vocabulary, but can happen in any birth setting. Like it doesn't have to follow any this or that birth trend or whatever. This can happen in a hospital, and I'm very glad that hospitals and obstetricians exist. Like they are needed, but they're not needed in every birth scenario. And they're certainly not needed as like the owners of the birth experience, because they're not. They're members of your web of support, and they're just in your web if you want them to be. They're not, you know, the gatekeepers of it. So, yeah, I think that like honoring the reality of the unfolding, the multi-layered unfolding and transformation of birth can happen anywhere, and that's like what the reclaiming is. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful, and I love that you defined what rite of passage is and that you pulled out that one piece, because I think that so many times when we think of, oh, whatever it is, even outside of, you know, pregnancy, oh, this is a rite of passage, it almost creates this feeling like you should be grateful. You should be grateful that you're getting to do this because it is a rite of passage for you. And in reality, that can really cause a lot of frustration. Why don't I feel that way? Guilt, shame, you know, all of these emotions popping up, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, thinking about like there's so few rites of passage in our current like Western societal context. I feel like the ones that people really think of are like graduation and like weddings. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Birth, funerals. Yeah, and so that's a good point. The idea of like at graduation, they're like, this is a rite of passage. And you're like, okay, I guess that means I should feel a certain way about it. Yeah, that is an interesting element to it. And I would love to invite into the conversation around rites of passage in the perinatal time frame is that like the invitation in this rite is you get to feel what you feel, not what people tell you you should feel.
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't even, okay, so let's add on to that based off of what you said earlier. And you had said about, we could come back and have this conversation. If we're talking about like this whole concept of rite of passage, about the birthing experience, right? There's also something you mentioned earlier. You said you're never actually returning to your old self. That is a falsity. And so let's talk about how that rite of passage of the birther themselves, taking the child out of the equation for the moment, right? The birther themselves is stepping into a new way of being, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, and they're never actually going back to who they were. Can we talk about that a little bit deeper and just share some insight about what you've seen with that?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I love that so much. Yeah, and it can feel so foreign. Even like in my birth work, like experience as a birth and postpartum doula, I can sense in my clients sometimes, especially like postpartum clients, where if I'm like focusing on them and not focusing on the baby, they're like kind of confused for a second. They're like, wait, but like, I'm like, yeah. Like they're so intertwined at that moment that like, yeah, the self as like a singular thing stops existing. It's not the singularity, the concept of singularity and like separateness gets messed with during this time frame, which is to me so freaking cool because it can, if we hold it in a certain way, it can help sort of bring us back closer to the reality of like what is going on here existing as like a being in the earth is on the earth as part of the earth. It's like, yeah, that we're like so obsessed with hyper individualism and can so easily forget that how everything is interconnected and intertwined. But yeah, pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum, these are times where it like becomes very clear, like I'm not just one thing. Like I was one thing and then I grew another thing and now that other thing is a different thing. And you're like, what? It's like shakes up the whole paradigm. Yeah, so I think that that's definitely part of the identity shift. And as much as there's like these really cool elements of it that I am like trying to celebrate, it's also like really weird. It's hard, especially in this context of a society that really values individualism and like production, like being productive and doing things. Like we're like the doingness that is incorporated into like our sense of selves can be really hard to navigate in the perinatal time frame because there's a lot less space for doing, just like logistically. And then also there's like a shifting in energy of like, well, yeah, sure. One, the energy of like maybe being too depleted to like go and do things that you used to do that help you to feel a sense of self. But then also like a shifting of like what you are tending to care about, like what you're feeling pulled towards. That can be really interesting to navigate. And something that I love navigating with specifically postpartum clients is like relearning themselves basically. And that there can be so much like spaciousness and like potential in that, where often it can kind of at first maybe land as like an ungroundedness where they're like, I don't even know who I am. It's like, I think my sense is that my stance and like what I will like stand here and uphold for you is that you do know who you are. It just takes a moment to kind of refine that. And it takes intention and like a lot of love and tenderness to re-find that. Yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer your
Yeah.
question at all, or am I
Yeah.
just
No, no, it does. Yeah,
into
yeah.
it?
And so in that whole process, because that is they're stepping into a new aspect of themselves in so many ways. How do you help them ground back in and really just be with that? And to relearn, to refine,
Yeah.
relearn, or whatever word you like to use.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, so there's like different layers to that for sure. And in so many different ways, like how to help in in the perinatal time frame always kind of comes back to like first basic needs. And those basic needs actually often do, I think, maybe specifically in this like moment of creating space for the birthing person and the new parent to kind of reconnect with themselves, is like a lot of times it might look like taking their baby so that they can go like have a nap, take a shower, like return softly, like soft land back into some things that they like hold on to as parts of themselves. Like I'm thinking of a client that was an artist, and like the day that she got to go back to doing art, she like, it like makes me a little emotional to think about it. She like, it meant so much to her to be like, I actually got to just like sit and paint today, and that was like, that was more than, you know, that was like what her soul needed in that moment. And to be able to support that literally by like, I would just like hung out with her baby for a little while she did that. Like that's all it took. And so yeah, there are a lot of these moments in which I think what's deeply needed is I feel like I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this, but like that web of support of like creating the like a landing net to hold the things, because there's just too many things to hold at some point. And so to hold something while maybe that something is the baby, maybe that something is a little bit more metaphorical than the baby, so that the unfolding process, that like reconnecting and basically the processing process, like your body, mind, spirit is processing on so many different levels. And a lot of times what's needed is just the space for that to happen. And the body, mind, spirit knows what to do. It just like needs time to do it. And it needs spaciousness to do it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's all about regulating the nervous system, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
definitely.
that nervous system. Obviously, there's a lot shifting and changing hormonally, which can affect your nervous system regulation. But then there's also all the other things that are thrown in: the identity changes, the fears, the medical overwhelm, like all of that stuff, right? And so I want to bring this nature concept in now. So because we're working with the nervous system so much here, nature connection, what does it actually do for the mind and the body, and why have you seen it to be such a beautiful, powerful ally in these perinatal seasons?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, so good. I love it. Man, okay, so I think that so much of what's needed in the perinatal season is like letting yourself be held energy, whether that's like quite literally or more metaphorically. But yeah, there's something to be said of support people knowing how to hold, and there's something to be said about birthing people knowing how to let themselves be held. And that, of course, extends past this as well. We all are learning. Well, we're all working on that, no matter what, right? But I think that nature, to me, is such a powerful ally in that, of like accessing this feeling of being held and kind of like connecting to this direct line to something that's something bigger. Again, like the metaphor of something bigger, but then actually the like very actualness of something bigger. So yeah, and we can, again, this is always true, but I think more profoundly even during the perinatal season is that we can turn to nature to witness and kind of like parse through and reckon with this energy of creation that's all around us all the time. And yeah, it's just like so incredible to have the opportunity to lean into that while, as someone that's like somewhere along the perinatal continuum, and recognize that you're like explicitly, precisely participating in that energy of creation. Like whether you know it or not, you're speaking the same language as nature. And I think finding ways to meaningfully connect with nature can help you to like recognize your fluency in that and like learn new vocabulary around it. And nature just creates this, it's just such an incredible space. And like, again, that idea of mutuality that I brought in at the beginning, it's like you're co-regulating with nature. It's not like an inert thing that you enter into and extract something out of. It's like you and this being, this giant being that you're a part of, you're co-regulating together. It's incredible for your nervous system. And yeah, I think like something that's sort of specific to why this feels powerful during the perinatal season is I think about how in birth there's like this really interesting complex relationship between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system like during labor, because of course like your sympathetic nervous system will be online, like you're like experiencing a lot of intensity, and it's important for that to be there, and it's also important for it to be balanced by the parasympathetic. So they're both like they're like in this dance, and that dance is like central to how the birth will unfold. And so I think during pregnancy, it's like so profound to find places where you can kind of practice that balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic. And nature is such an incredible place for that, because like, yeah, you're like co-regulating, you're like in this rest and digest, but you also have like an alertness where you're like, you know, hopefully in a space where you feel comfortable enough to not be like actively scared, but you're aware and present. So that's really interesting kind of dance that we can practice in nature. And it also is just such an invitation to release our like death grip on control and comfort. We cannot control the unfoldings of nature around us. And that feels like something really powerful to kind of interact with in pregnancy.
Yeah. Well, and so this kind of, you might have already just spoke to something that I wanted to ask you, because you've mentioned a couple times, but especially in the beginning, how childbirth and nature are literally one and the same. Like it is essentially, they just go hand in hand, because it is essentially really the same thing, right? And so I would love to know how you've seen nature as a mirror to this rite of passage. Like you've seen this mirror and how it kind of shows up, and it just turns its lens right back to you. And you may have just mentioned that, but I'm curious if you have other examples or ways that they just flow and you can learn from nature and connecting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's so interesting to think like sometimes I feel like I'm convinced that like we're actually the mirror of like we're reflecting back like whatever it is that we can remember and like capture of nature, and we're like whatever nature's naturing, and we're like gathering some of that. Or I don't know, maybe yeah, it's a mutual mirroring. But yeah, I think I did maybe speak to it a little bit, kind of just like a releasing of control and kind of, I don't know, sort of letting go of the concept of control and instead inviting in a little bit more recognition of like the classic like divine order through chaos kind of idea, where it's like nature is not a deeply like controlled thing as much as we have very much tried to and constantly are controlling it. In its essence, it's not like strictly, it's not neat, it's not time stamped, it's not, you know, it looks messy, but it holds this like divine intelligence within that messiness because it works and it allows itself to unfold. I don't know. Oh yeah, you said it's okay to swear on here. I used to work at this camp that it was like an ancestral skills camp, and one of their slogans was nature doesn't give a fuck. It's like nature is just naturing, and it's like so incredible for that to like, it doesn't care if you think it's beautiful, it just is beautiful. It's like, you know. I love that. Yeah, so maybe some of that like freedom that's in that, it's like allowing yourself to unfold the way that nature unfold, like it just is this, as I mentioned, like the unparalleled actualness of it, and then also the like constant change and cyclicalness of like, yeah, I guess kind of going back to that idea of equanimity is like this, whatever you're feeling or experiencing, it's going to change. That's like the way that the universe works. So like seeing in nature the cyclical movement of like life, death, life, and that there's not so much these like strict cutoffs between them, and yeah, more of like a flowing in between them. Yeah, there's yeah, I have so many thoughts, but
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Well, okay. And so, what if somebody doesn't really live in an area where it's easy to access nature? Maybe they have harsh winters, maybe they live in the city, or they don't really have access to trails. So, what is your suggestion there? How can they continue to nurture that connection and still get the benefits out of it?
Yeah, for sure. I think I love that because totally heard, and I also I love the opportunity to let people know that there is like no way that you can fail at nature connection and there aren't like, you know, prerequisite things that you need for it. Like truly, even if you just take a moment to like take a deep breath, maybe like put your hand on your chest and feel the air going in and going out, like that right there that's it. You are nature. So even if you, I know like some people think, well, I have access to like a pristine wilderness environment. That's okay. It is literally the fabric of our existence. We're sitting in it right now. So yeah, it's not like something that you do and either succeed at or don't. It's more like something that you already are, or like a framework that you can move through the world in. So yeah, it doesn't have to be this big grand thing. It can be like noticing a sunbeam coming through your living room window and like taking a moment to let it hit your skin and like feel the nourishment in that. For some people it's like tending to house plants, which like, yeah, more power to you, because I try and I feel a little bit of failure around that, but some people are great at it. Yeah, for some people it's like connecting with their pets. That's a huge one. And yeah, even if you don't have access to trails near you, that's totally fine. It could be like taking a 10-minute walk down the block with your baby in a carrier or stroller, or like your pregnant belly holding on to it. You can, here's something that I love is taking your baby on a nature walk while you're pregnant. You can like, you're like, okay, little one, here's this, take a look. Sorry, that's a bit of a tangent, but Yeah, it doesn't have to be a grand thing. It could be like, yeah, you go outside for like 5 minutes and you feel how the wind feels on your face and what the air smells like and like how these tiny little birds fluff up to stay warm in the winter. Like whatever it is, taking a moment to like notice something around you that feels like a gift that you're like, whoa, I never noticed the way that tree holds on to the other tree at the top. So sweet. Yeah, so like it's interesting because I always like to emphasize for my clients that like pregnancy, birth, and the parenting continuum, like as much as there are these large shared phenomenons, like yours is yours. And that is the same with nature connection. Like yours is yours. You get to find yourself within it, and you get to, you know, engage in like whatever truly resonates with you through it. You can't do it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You know, there's so many times that I've been working with clients, and I recommend getting out into nature, just being connected in. And one of the number one things that I am told is, again, depending on the time of year, oh, it's wintertime, I'm not going out, it's too cold. I don't really have any place to go hang out and outside and, you know, go for a walk. But like you said, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can literally be playing with a houseplant or putting your hands onto a leaf or just opening your window and sticking your head outside for a few moments. Yeah. There's so much you can do. And yeah. And so to expand on that, because I know that that you are in training right now to bring this adventure therapy into your work. What is different about healing through experience, this body and the environment, compared to just talk therapy alone? Like, what do you see, especially when it comes to perinatal folks? But in general, what do you see as being such a great aspect of this?
Yeah. I love that, of course, because otherwise I wouldn't be on the career path that I'm on. But yeah, okay, so I will start with that, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with talk therapy. I do it all the time. It's great. And also, it's just one part of the story, right? So I guess I've sort of spoken to it a little bit inadvertently with, like, the languaging choice of mind, body, spirit, right? Like, we're not a mind. Our mind is a part of us. We're not a body. Our body is a part of us. And we're not a spirit. Our spirit is a part of us. We are a partnership between all of these forces, and none is complete without the other. So as much as talk therapy can be like very supportive and helpful for that partnership, it often, like, of course, leans a bit more in the mind direction, which is, yeah, it's okay, but it's just part of the story, right? So to kind of like, yeah, I think experiential and like somatic approaches help to balance that out. And I think, oh man, it feels like that is always true, and then even more so profoundly impactful during pregnancy, and yeah, the perinatal continuum, just because pregnancy is like such a profound invitation to balance those scales within that partnership. Because, like, yeah, of course, societally, I think we all know and feel that our society is like extremely mind centric, and pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum kind of come in like, nope, sorry, you're an animal and you can't logic your way out of this. Like, it's just this like fully embodied, deeply altering experience that is like so whole being that it would feel, if you weren't addressing the like body spirit part of the continuum, it would be like ignoring the elephant in the room, I feel like. And it also kind of it leaves out an entry point into so much of the transformational energy of the experience. And just experiential somatic kind of orientations can offer an entry point into shifting things that can be like more kind of readily integrated and assimilated into the system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, let's talk about your project.
Okay.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about your project. I want to know, I mean, you are, I love this connection. I'm between the perinatal mental health and nature. I love this connection. I find it so important. I talk about nature connection all the time in the work that I do for
Nice.
nervous system support regulation, and
Nice.
but I want to talk about how you are creating something to really just push this initiative forward to get more people to understand this connection. So tell us about your project. What is your vision? What will participants actually experience, and what do you hope for the research of this to help make possible?
Yeah. Cool. Yay. Oh, I'm so excited about this project. Yeah, I'm so glad to chat with you about it. So, yes, so I am partnering with the wonderful Somatic Nature Therapy Institute, which is in Boulder, Colorado. And I am holding a 3-day experiential nature immersion retreat for pregnant individuals. Yeah, and with support from the Outdoor Research Collaborative, which is an awesome organization disseminating research on the broad array of nature-based, adventure-based, experiential therapeutics out there. With support from them, I am using this retreat and this opportunity to look at the ways in which meaningful connection with nature during pregnancy may help to support overall perinatal mental health throughout the entire continuum. So the hope is that nature immersion and meaningful encounter with nature during pregnancy can have a positive impact on maternal mental health outcomes. So the ripples of this, like cultivating this connection, is something that we're hoping to gather more information and narratives around so that we can kind of pull out themes. And my hope is that this research can help to shift towards more like proactive, holistic care and support for perinatal folks, that like really honors their like deep human needs, as opposed to and also their deep human needs and like the incredible potential of this moment of pregnancy to tend to those needs and like tend to the transformation that's potential there, as opposed to what's kind of currently in the space is mostly like reactive treatment of symptoms once they arise further down the line. So yeah, this is kind of looking upstream to like, what can we do to support the needs of these humans before those needs aren't met to such a degree that it manifests as mental health challenges. So yeah, so the retreat will take place this May 31st to June 3rd. It will be in Estes Park, Colorado, at this beautiful place called the Dow House. It's right before the entrance to Rocky Mountain National Park. It's like literally across the street from a super iconic Colorado 14er. It's just such a beautiful location. I can't even, I'm like feel so lucky that we're going to be holding it there. So yeah, and participants can expect to engage in like light experiential activities, mostly like nature walks and Shinrin-yoku-esque like nature mindfulness, as well as the rites of passage, as you know, as we've been speaking about, the rites of passage oriented kind of engagement and ceremony. So yeah, it's really, the intention is to create kind of a container in which to cultivate and live into, even if it's only for 3 days. Hopefully this like can expand further than that for the folks who participate, but really lean into like the reverence for this season of life and honoring the journey that these participants are on, and like how that journey can ripple out in so many ways. And yeah, create beautiful shifts that we need. Yeah. And I will just name, so maybe this is implied, but folks who are interested in participating must be pregnant and they must be in their second trimester. And just for like logistical reasons, if anyone's ever been, any listeners out there have been pregnant before, they might be like, yeah, I get why. Because the second trimester is kind of like, it's, a lot of people feel better than they did in their first, and they're like got a little bit of energy back. And yeah, unfortunately, participants, just given the like nature of where we're at and what we're doing, high risk pregnancies cannot be supported, unfortunately. Yeah, so if you or anyone you know is going to be in their second trimester at the end of May, beginning of June, let them know. It's a really wonderful opportunity.
And so we're going to get to where people can find you, Alyssa, but since we're talking about this, let's talk specifically about where people can learn more, sign up, share it, whatever kind of support they want to give. Where would you direct people to go?
Yeah, so we have a webpage, which should I say it out loud?
Yeah, you can say it out loud, but I'll have it in the show notes as well.
Okay, great.
So, but yeah, go ahead and say it out loud.
Yeah, it's Nurture the Journey Nurture the Journey, and it's not at a .com, so it's very confusing to me to say out loud sometimes, but it's at my.canva.site. This is what happens when you don't want to pay for a domain name. Whoops. But yeah, Nurture the Journey at my.canva.site. There's also we have an Instagram page for it, and that's at nurture_the_journey. And you can also, if you feel so inclined, you can find more information about it on the Somatic Nature Therapy Institute website. There is a page on there about it. But yeah, that Nurture the Journey webpage will have all of the information for probably any question that you have. And if there's anything missing, feel free to reach out to me and the contact information that's provided there. And yeah, you'll see on the page spots to sign up, spots to donate. This is a research project that is funded, as I sort of mentioned, in part by the Outdoor Research Collaborative. And we're running this not for profit. We're only covering overhead costs, and our hope is that we can kind of provide the opportunity for folks who maybe would historically not have access to this sort of support to be able to participate and not have financial barriers be prohibitive. So donations are highly welcomed if you're in such a place. If you're feeling inspired by this or excited and like want to be a part of it somehow, please feel free to donate. It could make the difference in someone being able to participate or not. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be down in the show notes, so you can go on down and click the link and support in any way that you're feeling called to at this point. Yeah, so awesome. Oh, I love it. Well, I am curious. Let's just kind of finish this conversation before we get into your rapid fire questions and learning more about you, Alyssa.
Okay.
I want to just finish today's conversation and just talk about something practical. If a pregnant or a postpartum listener really just wants one way to get started today, one way to step forward, a small action, maybe it's to help keep their nervous system safe, or maybe it is to move forward and do some of the work that you've talked about today, what would you suggest might be an easy step forward for them?
Yeah. That is an interesting one. I feel like it could be so different for different people, but what's first coming up for me is this idea of kind of returning to slowing down. If you can find any little moment to kind of slow for a second to allow that processing to unfold. So whether that's like, for some people that might look like stepping outside for a minute for like a short little walk and just like breathing deeply into that, noticing something you haven't noticed before. Or maybe it's just sitting and noticing your breath going in and out of your body. Just creating pause. Which, yeah, I know, easier said than done sometimes, but it can truly be just a small pause. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, before we get to know where people can find you and all the work you're doing, let's just do some fun rapid fire questions, get to know you a little bit deeper, get to take you into the humanness of you. So I am curious. First off, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. So 3 questions. All right.
Okay.
Number 1, what's your comfort move to regulate your nervous system after a big day?
Ooh, wow. My first thought that came to mind was, I guess it depends on the kind of day, but some days it's like laying face down on my living room floor. Let's be honest. But then after that, it's going on a walk with my partner. That's for sure. Whenever I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself, we're going outside. We're taking a little walk with the partner.
Yeah. Oh, I so can appreciate. There are times where I literally lay on the floor like a starfish, and I'm just like, I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to do anything. Yeah. I just want to be here in stillness. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
I can totally get behind staring blankly at a wall. That works.
Yeah. All right. Number 2. What is one thing you're currently obsessed with?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I'm super obsessed with knitting and I'm in a very maker moment. Sewing, knitting, weaving, wild crafting. I made a basket recently. It was incredible.
It's amazing.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, and finally, number 3. If you could take one listener on a nature walk right now, what's the first thing that you'd like to have them notice?
Wow. I think maybe we could start with noticing what it feels like for the ground to hold your weight, and you do the interaction, the flexion point between you and the ground. That would be the first thing.
I love it. I love it. Oh, Alyssa, thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation and just cracking the conversation, the egg open to allow people to really just see what is below the surface. Where can people find you? You talked about your project already, but if there's anything else that you got going on, your work that you're excited about, I'd love to hear about that too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if anyone is interested in reaching out to me just to chat birthwork stuff, or is interested in doula services, you can find me at my website is unbrokenbraidbirthwork.com. So feel free to reach out to me through the contact form there. And yeah, I don't have any personal socials because, to be honest, I'm just so not a social media person. I don't know, that probably doesn't really come as a surprise, but but feel free to reach out to me at unbrokenbraidbirthwork.com, and I am always happy to hear from folks. So even if it's just a shout out that has nothing to do with birthwork services, here for it. You can also find my email on the Nurture the Journey webpage, and yeah, feel free to. Or, write me a letter and send it by carrier pigeon.
And as always, all of those links will be down in the show notes.
Yeah,
awesome.
Sure. Except for the pigeon.
Except for the pigeon. The pigeon won't be there. You have to go get your own. Alyssa, thank you so much. Do you have any last words that you would like to lay on the hearts of the listeners for today?
I think I'm just loving the energy of our laughter together, Tansy, and it's just wanting me to shout out an invitation towards levity in these moments that can, feel like a lot, right? There's still space to laugh and breathe out.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tansy.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for just shaking up the system and allowing these incredible birthers to experience something different and new and healing.
Oh, thank you.